Yesterday, the Senate Judiciary Committee's single talking point was, by a ratio of 2-to-1, the number of times that they mentioned Thurgood Marshall, the first African-American Solicitor General. Now, Solicitor General is the job that Elena Kagan has right now. That's the person who argues on behalf of the United States government, not just the administration, but the United States government. She works for the executive branch, but argues on behalf of we the people before the Supreme Court against whoever is the other party, whether it's Southern Pacific Railroad or Nike or Citizens United or whoever it may be. The Solicitor General argues the U.S. side. Thurgood Marshall used to be the Solicitor General. And in 1950, was it 54, 56, as Solicitor General, I'm pretty sure it was 54, he went before the Supreme Court and he argued in a case called Brown versus Board of Education that way back in 1898 in the Plessy versus Ferguson case, where an African-American by the name of Plessy got onto a railroad car and walked into the whites-only car, and a railroad cop by the name of Ferguson arrested him and threw him off the car. He got back on, he got arrested, thrown off, got back on, got arrested, thrown off, got back on. Finally, he got imprisoned, Mr. Plessy, took this case all the way to the Supreme Court, 1898, and the Supreme Court ruled that he did not have the right to sit in the whites-only car, that he had the right to be in a blacks-only car that had equal accommodations. In other words, it also had seats, also had windows. They didn't have to be quite as clean or quite as fancy, but roughly equal. And that doctrine applied to schools, it applied to churches, it applied to railroad cars, it applied to airplanes, it applied to restaurants, it applied to hotels, right across the board from 1898 until 1954. And Thurgood Marshall went before the United States Supreme Court and said this, as America's first African-American Solicitor General, and said this is wrong. And in a unanimous ruling, all of the members of the Supreme Court in 1954, all of them said, you're right. So yesterday, I just find this incredible. The 35 times Jeff Sessions and all the, and his right-wing henchmen, his right-wing buddies, his Republican buddies on the Senate Judiciary Committee, 35 times in a negative context, they mentioned Thurgood Marshall. They only mentioned Barack Obama, who is their modern-day boogeyman. Oh, my God, we've got an African-American as president. They only mentioned him 14 times. So yesterday was, I'll get to today in just a second, yesterday was War on Thurgood Marshall Day. So who the hell is Thurgood Marshall? Well, as I said, he's the guy who successfully argued the Brown versus Board of Education case before the United States Supreme Court in the mid-1950s that led to the integration of our schools, that led to the integration of our lunch counters, that led to the integration of our neighborhoods, that led to the, oh my God, Jeff Sessions might have to sit next to a black man on an airplane now. Can you believe it? Jeff Sessions' kids might have to go to school with black kids. Now, here's what's truly bizarre. After spending the whole day slamming Thurgood Marshall as an activist, this man was an activist. Senator Jeff Sessions, he called him a well-known liberal activist judge. When the Salt Lake Tribune, the newspaper in Salt Lake City. Now, Orrin Hatch is another member of this Congress. He was trashing Thurgood Marshall. And so his local newspaper tracks him down and says, what was wrong with Brown versus Board of Education? And Orrin Hatch says to his hometown newspaper, well, it's hard to say. Turns and walks away. But, Orrin Hatch said to the paper, there is no doubt he was an activist judge. John Kyle, the Republican senator from Texas who's on the Senate Judiciary Committee, The guy who's the chairman of the Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee, the guy tasked with raising money for other Republicans. Talk about speaking to the base. Talk about dog whistle to the racists. Talk about what the Republicans did yesterday was all but furl out a KKK banner and show up at Robes and Hoods and say, hey, all you racist guys out there, send us money. Get us elected. We're going to make a good stand here against this woman who had the temerity to clerk for Thurgood Marshall. See, that's why they keep invoking Thurgood Marshall's name, is because Elena Kagan was a clerk for this guy. So this is pretty amazing. So Jon Kyl criticized Thurgood Marshall yesterday after the hearings. Or excuse me, this was during the hearings. And what was his criticism of Thurgood Marshall? What made Thurgood Marshall a liberal activist? Well, these are Jon Kyl's own words. Quote, he had an unshakable determination to protect the underdog. Oh, we can't have that. I mean, that's just terrible. Jon Kyl went on to say, the president says that judges should have a keen understanding of how the law affects the daily lives of American people and know that in a democracy, powerful interests must not be allowed to drown out the voices of ordinary citizens. And that is an accurate quote by Jon Kyl of President Obama. He then goes on to say, Kagan wrote a tribute to Justice Marshall in which she said it was his view that the courts and it was the role of the courts in interpreting the Constitution to protect the people who went unprotected by every other organ of government. And later, when she was working in the Clinton administration, she encouraged a colleague on a speech about Justice Marshall to emphasize his unshakable determination to protect the underdog. Oh, my God! We can't have this. This is absolutely terrible. This woman clerked for an African-American who was a progressive. He wasn't even actually a progressive. He was a kind of moderate liberal. He mostly thought that, the underdog should be protected. That American values had to do with the middle class and everybody. As opposed to John Roberts, who has always, in every single ruling, I am not exaggerating, has always sided with the rich, the powerful, and the corporate over the poor, the powerless, and the individual. Judicial activism. This is absolutely bizarre. The Republican Party flailing around trying to get the racist vote in their base activated in the using the Kagan hearings to do it.